Right now, if you felt a fever coming on, you'd probably reach for medicine within the hour. You'd expect it to disappear by tomorrow. You'd barely think twice about it. Your ancestors did not have that luxury, and the way they handled sickness reveals something stranger than you'd expect. You might assume ancient humans were helpless against illness, defenseless, at the mercy of every fever and infection that came their way. That's not quite true. They had a system. It just didn't look anything like a hospital. Picture an early human curled up near a fire, shivering, sweating, barely able to stand. The rest of the group doesn't abandon them.
They also don't treat the fever like an enemy to destroy immediately. Why would they let it run its course? Because fever isn't just a symptom, it's a weapon. Evolutionary biologist Randolph Ness spent years studying why the human body does the things it does during illness, and his conclusion reframes the entire experience. A fever raises your internal temperature specifically because many pathogens can't survive in a hotter environment. Your body isn't malfunctioning when you burn with fever. It's fighting back on purpose with heat as the weapon. So when your ancestor lay by the fire, shaking and overheated, their body wasn't failing. It was working exactly as designed.
Would smothering that fever the moment it started have actually helped them, or would it have handed the advantage back to whatever was making them sick? This single idea changes how you should think about a lot of what illness feels like. Fatigue, loss of appetite, wanting to withdraw and lie still for hours. None of that feels good, but none of it is random either. Think about what happens the moment you catch a cold today. You lose your appetite, you want to sleep more, you avoid socializing. This cluster of behaviors even has a name in modern science: sickness behavior.
Researchers have found this pattern across nearly every mammal species, not just humans, which tells you something important. It's ancient. It's not something your ancestors invented. It's something evolution built into nearly every warm-blooded creature that gets sick. Why would your body want you to stop eating and stop moving? Because digestion and physical activity both cost enormous amounts of energy. Fighting an infection also costs enormous amounts of energy. Something has to be sacrificed. Your ancestors' bodies made the trade automatically, shut down the optional systems, and pour everything into the immune response. That's not weakness, that's triage. Now here's where things get stranger and where a scientist named Valerie Curtis changes the picture entirely. Curtis spent much of her career studying disgust, and she came to an unusual conclusion. Disgust isn't primarily about bad taste or bad smells. It's a defense system against disease. Think about what disgusts you most: rotting meat, vomit, open wounds, bodily fluids from a stranger. According to Curtis's research, these reactions share one thing in common. They're all things historically associated with pathogens. Your ancestors who felt a strong wave of nausea near a decaying carcass were less likely to eat from it. The ones who felt indifferent were more likely to get sick and less likely to pass on that indifference to the next generation. So disgust wasn't your ancestors being squeamish. It was an early warning system built directly into emotion, running centuries before anyone understood what a pathogen even was. Have you ever recoiled from spoiled food before your conscious brain even registered why? That reaction happened faster than thought. That's the whole point. A system that waits for you to reason your way to safety is a system that's already too slow. This also explains something odd about how ancient humans treated the sick within their own groups. You'd expect total isolation, the way we might imagine primitive fear of contagion working. But the reality, based on archaeological evidence, tells a more complicated story. Anthropologists have found skeletal remains showing signs of long-term illness and disability, where the individual clearly survived for years after the injury or disease first appeared. That's not possible without care. Someone brought them food. Someone protected them. Someone chose closeness over abandonment, even while some instinctive part of their brain may have been screaming to pull away. That tension between disgust-driven avoidance and social bonds pulling you toward care still exists inside you right now. Have you ever felt a flicker of hesitation before helping a sick friend, immediately followed by guilt for feeling it at all? That's not coldness. That's two ancient systems briefly arguing with each other. Now consider what your ancestors did when a full-blown illness moved through the group. Without medicine, without diagnosis, without any understanding of bacteria or viruses, they still weren't defenseless. They used behavior as medicine, isolating the visibly sick when possible, avoiding contaminated water sources instinctively, often without knowing exactly why certain water made people ill, choosing food based on smell cues that, unknown to them, were flagging early spoilage or toxins.
None of this required conscious science. It required emotion doing the job science hadn't been invented to do yet. This is where the story bends back toward you. You still carry every piece of this system. When you feel too exhausted to do anything but lie in bed during a cold, that's sickness behavior, straight from your ancestors doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
When you wrinkle your nose at spoiled milk before your brain finishes the sentence, "That's probably bad," that's disgust, functioning as a pathogen alarm exactly the way it did 50,000 years ago. And when you feel torn between wanting to help a sick friend and wanting to keep your distance, that's not a character flaw. That's two extremely old survival strategies, care and avoidance, both still trying to protect you, just aimed in opposite directions at the same moment. Here's a question worth asking. If your body already knows how to fight illness this precisely, why does modern life so often override it? You push through fevers to make it to work.
You suppress the urge to rest because deadlines don't care about your immune system's priorities. Your ancestors, without modern obligations pulling at them, often had no choice but to listen to what their bodies were already telling them to do. Maybe that's the real difference. Not that your body has changed. It hasn't. But the world around it has, and it rarely gives that ancient system the room it was designed to operate in. So the next time a fever pulls you under the blankets, or your stomach turns before you can explain why, or you feel that quiet pull towards someone who's sick, even while some older part of you hesitates, you're not malfunctioning.
You're running the same system your ancestors ran. The same fire that once burned pathogens out of a shivering body by the campfire is still lit inside you tonight. Right now, if you felt that fever coming on, maybe you shouldn't reach for medicine within the hour. Maybe, for a little while, you should let the ancient fire do exactly what it was built to do.